Hi, good to have you with us here from our Atlanta studio. I'm Matt Weiner. That's the ringmaster right there. Derek Fisher, Carlos Boozer. Good to see you, fellas.
Good to see you.
So why?
Good. Good. Everything's good. They're good in Houston right now. They got more of their parts back. Yeah. You know, as a coach, it's good when you have your best players on the floor, right?
Yes, that helps.
A good formula to have.
That helps. That makes you a much better coach.
Mike D'Antoni is feeling like a little better coach tonight because Chris Paul returned. He missed 17 games with that hamstring injury, and you may have heard James Harden kind of went nuts during that period, averaging just under 44 a game, not to mention the 8 assists a game, and his usage percentage, an unheard of 43.7, slightly more than his points per game average. But that's all in the past. With Chris Paul back, by the way, they went 12-5 in those games without him. Paul back for the Rockets tonight with the Orlando Magic in town. We have a highlight. I thought we had a highlight. I'm sorry. My mistake. No, we do have a highlight. This just in. We're waiting expectantly. There it is. There it is. There's Chris Paul. I swore to you guys we had a highlight. 17 games away. How would he look? How many minutes would he play? All those questions to be answered. James Harden. 304 straight points without an assisted bucket at that point. But the Magic are building a lead here early on. Nikola Vucevic with the rebound, put it back. Everyone seems to think he's going to be an all-star when the reserves are announced. Harden to Kenneth Faried. It's fit in nicely with this Rockets team. 26 in the first half for the bearded one. Second quarter, DJ Augustine. And Orlando up by 8 at the half. We'll hear Mike D'Antoni talk about the adjustment with Paul back out there in just a moment. Fourth quarter now. Jerry Grant to Aaron Gordon. 23 and 10 for Gordon. Orlando still up by 8. Paul, 12 points on the night. Also had 5 rebounds and 6 assists. Finished a -2 for what that's worth. Off the miss here, Rockets on the run. It's P.J. Tucker with the finish. And the Rockets have their first lead of the night at 93-92. Late, you know who's getting the ball. It's Harden. Big 3. And then a step back 2. They finished the game 24-11. And the Houston Rockets get the win with Paul back on the floor, 103-98. Harden extends his 30-point streak to 23 straight games as they record their 3rd straight win. Afterward, Mike D'Antoni talked about a little bit of a natural let-up because Paul was on the floor again.
You know, with Chris back, sometimes you have a tendency, you look, Chris is back, and you let down a little bit. And it's nothing against Orlando, but it's still not a national TV game, and it's a game you got to grind out. And they have some very good offensive players, and we let them go. And we didn't have the necessary energy to start the game. But because of their spirit and where we want to be and who they are, they kept digging it. And finally, we held them to 37 in the second half. And that was awesome. That was really good defense. And it was, and I just told James, they voted him in the wrong place. They got him at a guard in the All-Star game. He should be at center. And that's what he is. He's a point center.
I don't know about that. I'm not exactly sure what Coach D'Antoni's talking about there. Point center, but Harden goes for 40, which means his January average is coming down.
Just a little.
Which is crazy, right?
Which is crazy.
It is crazy. What's it going to mean to have Chris Paul out there with him now? Everyone talked about the usage rate, which we showed you guys know that number is just absurd, ridiculous. And you would think unsustainable for an entire season. Now he gets some possessions off, but even at the end of the game, there was a possession where Paul had it for a little while and then gave it over to James Harden so he could knock down a late bucket.
Yeah, no, in my opinion, I think it allows the Rockets to start to settle into the style of play that they're going to need to in order to win in the postseason. That balance between how much the ball is in Harden's hands, playing minutes with Chris Paul. Harden's on the bench. Now Chris Paul is running the show, leading the offense, etc. That's where the Rockets are right now. I think they are positioned perfectly, actually, to start playing some of their best basketball as a group while Clint Capella is still out. I think we have to give some props to Kenneth Faried.
Yeah.
He's come in, I think, to Houston. He's been active. He's done all the things that he has done in his NBA career, rebounding, energy, activity, and I think that's helped the Rockets be sound on the defensive end. even while Harden has been explosive offensively.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think CP coming back is going to give James Harden a little bit of rest. He can still get his 40 points or 35 points and be effective, but you see more guys getting touches, different ways, more pick and rolls, more assists, 4 guys in double figures, good numbers. You know, it gives James Harden a chance to rest a little bit more as well, not so much pressure on him. And like Fish said, it gets them ready for postseason basketball. It's tough to win a championship or go for a championship when you got one guy with that kind of usage percentage, which is unheard of. Yeah, tough to win that way.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot easier to game plan for. Whether or not you can stop him, it's a whole lot easier to game plan if you know the same guy is going to have the ball on every possession, not just at the end of the game, but the entire game.
Yeah, and you've seen some of the Rockets' opponents in the last week or so, I think starting with the Lakers, really being aggressive defensively to get the ball out of his hands at times, to get all the way into his space, force him to go right and live inside the three-point line. Those are things that teams started to adjust to. To Harden's credit, he adjusted and was still able to figure out how to get points as well as get wins, but tough to do when you're trying to advance from round 1, 2 into the conference finals and then NBA finals.
You heard Mike D'Antoni praise his team's defense in the second half. They only allowed 16 points in that fourth quarter. Remember, Jeff Buzdelik, who is their defensive coordinator, left the team over the offseason, then returned a little after Thanksgiving. Maybe we're starting to see the fruits of his return there, even without a couple of their elite defenders from last year's team.
Yeah, Jeff is a good defensive mind, and obviously D'Antoni is a master at offense, as we've seen his whole coaching career. You got to have a guy like that on your staff, talking about Jeff, to be able to give some good points of shrinking the floor, contested shots, go for the rebound, gang rebound, things like that good defensive coaches, good defensive teams, as Fish knows, championship teams win on defense, even though they have good offensive players.
Yes, for sure, and that's what we've seen from the Warriors, who have they're the standard bearer.
Right.
Defensively, they've been at the top of the league. The Spurs, great defensive teams over the years. To Booz's point, though, about Jeff Buzdelik, great defensive mind. He holds the line in terms of that end of the floor, which allows Mike D'Antoni to really focus on where his strengths are. And then also, I think the Carmelo Anthony not impact, but the energy, trying to figure out, is Melo here? Is he not here?
Right.
Now being able to move past that. I think all of these things are kind of combining itself, and the Rockets are starting to round into the team that we thought they were going to be when the season started.
He's not only not there anymore, tonight he was in New York to watch the Heat and the Knicks, which you'll see a little later on. So still no Clint Capella, and he's weeks away from returning, but with Paul back in the lineup, Kenneth Faried's played good minutes, as you mentioned a few moments ago. How close are the Rockets right now, with 30-ish games to go, to where they were at the end of last season?
That's a tough question. I think, they still will feel the impact of Noah Ariza, Noah Mbah in terms of that length and versatility on the defensive end, in particular when they face the more explosive offensive teams. If the Lakers get into the postseason, there's less guys that you can throw at LeBron James if you see the Warriors at any point. But I do think guys like Austin Rivers, he competes with an edge when he's on the floor. I think he's been good for them since he's been in Houston. Eric Gordon, who's had some injuries, he still had some great moments. I don't think they're as good as they were when the season ended last year in the way that it did for them. But I think they're starting to scare people again in terms of at least being a team that should be in the conversation to try and contend with the Warriors when they're at full strength. Capella's back, Chris Paul is back, everyone is there. I think we see the Rockets being able to have a chance to win.
But you have to judge them the same way because they very seldom have had all their parts so far this season.
That's very true. But speaking of Houston, though, with Capella coming back, and now you got Faried, there's no letdown, really. I mean, obviously, Capella might be a better shot blocker at times, but Faried can block shots as well. As Fish said earlier, his rebounding, his athleticism, his energy, his force. He goes to the hoop with abandon, trying to dunk everything, plays above the rim. He's not going to do nothing crazy out there that you're not going to see anybody else do, but he can go to the basket, go for dunks, go for rebounds, bring energy, play good defense, and then you put Capella back in there. So the minutes that he's out there, he's not going to hurt you.
And one of the key things you need, too, real quick, is you need a guy that is truly appreciative of the opportunity to be where he is.
Great point.
On a team that has a chance to win.
Right.
And Faried, that new energy and new blood and desire happy to be back on the court in the league playing for a good team. That also gives you that daily boost in those 10:30, 11 o'clock practices.
Sure.
You need a guy that's kind of pushing everybody to get better and work hard.
He was kind of sitting and rotting in Brooklyn as they went with youth, obviously, for good reason with the Brooklyn Nets. Well, you can watch for yourself when the Rockets host the Pelicans Tuesday night on a players-only night on TNT. That's right, it's back. Pels and the Rockets. Then you'll see the Sixers out west to take on the Lakers. Maybe LeBron that night. He's close. Coverage starts at 7 Eastern time right here on NBA TV with GameTime.
But the big fella's favorite All-Star memory happened during the pregame of the 1996 event in San Antonio. Shaq looks back with Ro Parrish on this edition of Storytime with Shaq. '96 All-Star Game, San Antonio. This game is legendary for a number of reasons, especially for the posterization of one David Robinson. Gone on record a number of times. He didn't speak to you, so you contrived the story that he didn't sign your autograph. How did that story come about?
That story was early, and I made it up. He was always nice to me, but I have to be mad at somebody that dominated. And he was a nice guy, so I made it up. And I finally told him 30 years later, hey, I made that story up. He was like, yeah, I was wondering, because I always spoke to you at night stuff. But I made it up. But before that game, I'm at the crib. I'm in San Antonio, boom, boom, boom. Los Angeles Lakers, Shaquille O'Neal, boo. I'm like, y'all booing me? I was the first original big man in San Antonio. I was there way before Dave Robinson was there. I was like, okay, y'all gonna boo me. So every chance I got to score on him, I had to. So I think Penny got it, threw it to Grant. Grant gave me the bounce pass, and Dave Robinson was right there. I was like, ooh, got him. And I cocked that thing back, and I threw it down. Boom, and I looked back at Michael Jordan. He's my fraternity brother. And he gave me that sign. I just threw it up to Mike. You know, I had a pretty good game, and I thought I was getting the MVP, but that was the year that Mike came back, and they gave it to Mike.
Shaq played extremely well. I thought he was the MVP. I think he could have easily been.
When he raises that trophy, are you saying that's my trophy? What are your thoughts?
I'm saying it, but anytime they pick somebody that's better than you, you can't be mad.
So back to MJ, we know about his legendary performance and he sees the MVP, but you had a great moment in the pregame where you and MJ go one-on-one, and you kind of, we won't say kind of, you shook him up a little bit, gave him that dream shake.
A lot of people don't know about my handle. I was the first big dude to take it off the glass and go coast to coast and either make a play or throw it down. Not Giannis, not Boogie Cousins, me. I was the first one to take it down with style and class, that eye with the handles and throw it down. So Mike didn't know that. And Mike's a great defensive player, so he was there. So now I said, okay, Akeem, throw it in the bounce, get him back in. Beep, 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 beep. And the only thing that made it good is I made the shot. I made the shot. Well, turn around, baseline jumper. And I didn't know people was watching because when I made the shot, the crowd said, ooh, and ah. And it's crazy that that's still a meme today.
Is that the best All-Star moment you've ever experienced?
I would say, because, even though it wasn't a real moment, it was a real moment. A little street style, a little and one, a little I had to show it to him.
Rip, you ever have any All-Stars slow walk you with the non-trash talk before a game?
Oh, man, yes. It was two guys that really stand out. One, our colleague, Grant Hill, and Vince Carter. I mean.
What would they do?
No, they would try to soft talk me. That's what I used to call it. Like before the games, the mentality when you come out, you want to seek and kind of destroy. You don't want to be friends with the guy that you're playing against. And Grant and Vince, they will always come out at the beginning of the game right before tip-off, like, how your family? How your kids doing? Are you healthy? And, they might foul you hard, but then they'll help you up and say, hey, man, you okay? And I didn't want that. I didn't like that. I didn't want you to like me because that was my motivation to go out there and play my game. When I started liking people, I just didn't feel like I had the same impact on the game. But Grant Hill and Vince Carter, them two guys stick out.
They were the silent assassin.
Yes, they was.
Oh, man. And for us, I always think back to the Bulls season. We had such a different mentality, and part of it, honestly, was because of Pat Riley. We weren't even, we would get fined if we helped guys up on the opposing team off the floor. You couldn't, if you knocked a guy, you couldn't help him up. Like you know, so he created this bunkers mentality. Like it was just us against the world.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, I remember I think it was my rookie year, I ended up giving like Michael Jordan like a forearm shiver across the throat, right? Knocked him down. And, you know, he jumped up. This was like before the flagrant foul. And then, you know, I took a step back, then Oak ran over there real quick, so then I got bold. Then I took a step forward. But you just really did, like, it was, like, personal.
Yeah.
Like, literally, the way you would compete. Now, the irony of it is it doesn't have to be. And Grant and Vince will teach you that. I mean, you see it today. A lot of these guys are really friendly, but they're trying to cut your heart out.
Yeah.
You know, but they do. They want to come up and pat you on the back. How are the kids, man? Everybody good?
Yes.
You good? You get, let's get dinner, you know, pop a bottle of wine down the line before they cut your heart out.
And Chris, I think that was hard for me, especially in the All-Star game, because now all the guys that you're competing against, especially guys like D. Wade, and we knew that we were going to meet them in the Eastern Conference Finals. So now I got to be friends with them because I knew that that was my edge. And I knew that I tried everything to kind of try to slow him down. And now if we start to be friends, that's just going to give him another advantage to come out and lead his team to win. So that was always tough for me to kind of like befriend guys, especially when you compete against them.
So All-Star Weekend matters when you're trying to win a championship. That's what I just got from you.
Yeah.
All-Star Weekend, NBA TV and TNT has you covered starting at 11 a.m. on Friday.